Welcome CSC 235 to your last exercise, hands-on exercise of the semester, and this will be exercise 15B because we're just going to add on to exercise 15 and we're going to insert a character to our database. So it's going to require editing our ex16 code just a little bit, not a whole lot, shouldn't be very long. I didn't make a very nice form here, but I just wanted to make sure it worked. And I tried it one time and I put in Poppy Puff, who's a puffer fish, and I forgot the color field, so there's no color there. So the next one will have a color. I don't know who else to put in here because I'm running out of characters that I'm thinking about, but you can just make up characters if you need after this point because I don't know anymore. So I'm going to put in, I think I've pearl crabs. There may be some other ones that I'm not thinking about. Number one, there was that scary guy who got out of prison, whoever, but I can't think of the names right now. So I'm just going to put in something like Sean Sharkey. How's that? Sean Sharkey. And guess what he is? He's a shark. And his color would be gray. And his age, he's a young guy. Let's say he's like 17 or something. Maybe he's a bad influence and he wants to date Pearl. Or maybe Pearl likes him because he is a bad influence. They're attracted sometimes to those types. So anyway, let's put in Sean Sharkey and see if we can add him to the database. And we're doing this all through one page. We're not doing separate pages. We could make a results page and an insert page, but that would require more work and we don't have a lot of time at the end of the semester. So we just want to get this to work so we can get our full stack here, our front end and back end. So this is front end, but then it's going to go to the back end and it's going to come back to the front end all in one page. So let's hit add character. I can't wait to see what happens. And there it is. And it shows up in its correct color because we're alternating colors. There's Sean Sharkey, who's a shark and is a gray color. So that's all we're going to do for our last exercise. And I'll show you the code to do that coming up.
All right, to pick up where we left off, I'm going to go into my files and I'm going to do my HTML first. And I'm going to go into templates and I'll open up my index. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put a little form underneath the table right on the same page. Now we could type this all in here. If you want to go to Replit, you could do that because sometimes it's just easy to do that. Type your stuff in there. So if you have a Replit account, and you do, you can create a new repel and make it HTML, CSS. Don't worry about this. Leave it whatever because we're not going to use it for long. And we'll get our skeleton here, remove everything from body. We don't need that. Again, we're not going to save this, but it'll just help us write code. And what we're going to do is put in a form. And I'll just put form, tab. And it has form action. And we're going to do action equals, and we're going to have to put a URL there. And we're going to use our double curly braces. Now they won't show up correctly in here. And then in the middle here of these, we're going to put URL for. Now it won't understand it in here, but we're going to put URL for, and then in single quotes we'll just put index because we're going to go to the same page. And we'll need a method, and we could do it first. We could do method equals post, and we talked about that before. And typically that's in quotes and in capital letters. And make sure you put a space between those two attributes for form. And I think that's all we're going to need. And that should be it with form. I'll move this over. And remember, everything's going to go inside the form tags. And what we'll do first, oh look at this, it's coming up with something. But if you want to start typing label and hit tab, label 4 comes up here. And we're going to do labels for all our columns. Now we aren't going to do one for ID. So we're going to do one for fname, because that's the first thing that comes up, if you called it that, fname. And then inside the tags here, we'll just put first name, so we know what to do. And then we're going to do an input field, which is going to be text. So we'll do input and hit tab. Type equals text. And it's coming up with some stuff here. Now, that must have remembered that I did that before somehow. But you might just have input equals text. And you can do ID. ID equals name in quotes. And then you also want to have, or actually fname, be the same as that. And then you also want to have name, because name will correspond to the MySQL database. So you want name here. And you're going to have name equals fname. And I should be consistent with my quotes here and do double quotes fname. And after that I'm going to put a space and put required. So that should be our label, and that, and if I refresh that, that's what it looks like. So that's showing you if you got it right. And then you can just copy this and update it. And then we could put it all into Pythonanywhere. So I'll do my second one, and this is easy. I'll do this one right away. Lname, last name, lname, lname. Okay, they look okay now. And then we'll just keep copying and paste. I guess through the copy and paste, sometimes it gets messed up. That's our second one. And again, now I'll fix these later. I don't know why it doesn't like it when I paste it. So I'm backspacing, putting them in here. So after last name and first name, and we then have species. And these can both be species because that's the name in our database. If you used it the same way, which hopefully you did. So we have species, and then we have color. And again, backspace tab, and this one will be color, and these will all be color. And again, name is getting it from the column name in your database. This is the column name in your database. ID is using the label for to ID it. And then one more we'll do age. And again, I'm just doing a little backspace tab here. Doesn't matter if it's not lined up, but looks better, at least with the code. And this will be age, all lowercase, if that's the way you have it in your database. So that's what we have there. So the last thing we have in our form, we need a submit button. And we could just type button. I'll tab this over and type button and then tab. And we can do type equals submit. And it's coming up here. Type equals submit. And then we'll just put add character, because that's what it's going to do when you hit the button. You spell it right. I don't think that's right. There we go. Add character. Button type, submit, add character. And again, method equals post, because that means it's coming from a form and it's not going to be in your URL. And this is that special action that we use so that it's staying on the same page, but it still knows to do something after you hit the button. So we still have to use this URL for, since we're basically going somewhere, even if it's the same place. So this is all we should need for this. So I'm going to copy this whole form out of here. Remember, we have form tags, and then we just have these. Now, I'll show you something else in a minute once I paste it. So I'm going to copy all this. It looks okay. Add character. I'm not sure why that's an underline, but I'm going to copy it and go back here. And this is all going to be after the table. And I could even put an H2. Now, I could have typed that up there, but I'm going to put an H2, and I'll just put insert character, and we'll finish it off. Then I'll paste it. So there's all my stuff that I pasted. It looks okay. I don't see any problems. And let's just double check everything. Fname, lname, oh, look at this. Label for. I didn't change all my L4s. So that's why we double check. So it's label for species. And I know copying and pasting is quicker, but sometimes you forget these things. And this is color, and this is age, and I think that's it. So they all line up. Age, there's 3 ages, 3 colors, 3 species, 3 lnames, and 3 fnames. So that should be good. We should be okay with that. We have an H1, we have an H2, and you could preview it to see what it looks like if you want. Although we still may have problems because everything's linked up to our Python file. It's not just an index file that we could just look at, but that looks okay. We could correct things later if there's any problem. One thing I'm going to do in here before I save this is after species, after the input for species, I put 2 line breaks just to put it on 2 lines. And it was real tight with just 1, so I'm going to put 2. I'll just put 2 in a row. There's better ways we could have formatted it, but for the sake of being quick, we'll just put 2 line breaks at the end of the input for species. And then color, age, and the button will be on their own line, just like my sample that I had. So all we have to do now, I believe, is just save this. And then what we'll do next is we'll work in our Python file, and I think I'll do that in part 2. So in part 2, we'll go back to CSC 235 and open up our Flask app, and we'll modify this. We'll put a little more code in here. We're going to modify this def index a little bit more. We're also going to put in a function that inserts into our database, because right now we just have basically a query that just displays, and that's it. So inserting's a little more challenging. That's just basic SQL code, and you could always look up W3 schools, insert into MySQL, and just check it out. And here's what it looks like. Insert into, you put a table name and then you put values. So it's going to put this stuff in here, and we're going to use placeholders and then put in our own value column names that we have in there. There's going to be placeholders for values because we don't know what's going to go in there. It's going to have to wait till we get information from the form. So it's going to work with the form. But we put insert into, then we put the table name, and then we put all the column names. You know, name, F name, L name, color, age, species, all those things in there. And then we're going to put placeholders for values. And then we're going to retrieve that and put it into our database. And so it's just SQL, but we're just embedding it into our Flask code. So we're going to go back to our Python and do that. So we're going to continue this, our Flask app py. Hopefully that was working for you. This will stay the same for the most part, I think. I think we just might add some stuff to it, but we're going to put another function before this in part 2 coming up.